Hey guys, I want to show you three very inexpensive hatchets that are a must-have for you axeholics out there like me, that are inexpensive and pretty easy to find and are also really high quality. One of the things I always run into is people buying just kind of garbage and not knowing it because they don't know anything about axes or hatchets, and spending $10–15 on essentially a doorstop. So I wanted to point out three models that I think are very good for the money and are well worth it and very versatile. We'll start out a little bit of a cold, guys, so excuse me, with the Marvel's Camp Axe. This one here is I kind of didn't like it at first. It took a little while to grow on me. I think part of it is because the head came loose right after I got it, and I think that was just a result of it being a different moisture environment here than what it was in storage. But I was able to get it tightened back down without having to do any real work. I think it was just, like I said, I think it was just a matter of that. So basically I ended up just kind of soaking it with linseed oil and letting it swell, and it hasn't given me a problem since. So this thing is like, I think it's about a 1 3/4 pound head on a 16-inch handle. It's got that very thin handle to it, which believe it or not, guys, I have tried to break. I didn't trust it, so I just kept slamming this thing and slamming 90 degrees straight into a tree, just seeing if that handle was going to break, and it never did. It apparently is stronger than it looks, so that thinness in the handle is really not too much to worry about. It's a really cool axe, very well reviewed. Wrangler started his video on it, how he kind of said he felt it was the best $20 axe out there. And of course, ever since then, the prices have gone up because there is such a demand on these now because of that video. I think last time I looked, he's got like 500,000 views on it. It's pretty insane. Came with a really good handle. You can see it's a really good straight grain, proper orientation, and very well hung. Very good job. This axe is not only a good, kindling axe and will take down smaller trees, but you can also use it for carving. You can choke up, get really close into the work, so if you are using it for carving, really cool. So it's a really good multi-purpose item. You can use it for, some basic, making spoons and things like that, as well as taking down small trees. You're not going to take down whoppers with this thing, but, for a camp axe, it's actually a pretty good size and a pretty good weight and a good balance and overall decent, But, like I said, these things are coming from El Salvador, so that head might pop a little loose on you when you get it home, just so you know. But you can fix it. Just soak that end in boiled linseed oil and let the wood swell up a little bit, and you'll be good as good can go. Next, the Vaughn shingling hammer, or roofer's hatchet, or whatever you want to call it, carpenter's hatchet. These things you can actually get at Walmart for $19.99. They are a fantastic deal. They're a 14-inch straight kind of hammer-handled hatchet with a 22-ounce head on it. Vaughn uses 1090 steel, if I remember right. The Marbles uses 1045, which is a little bit of a softer steel than I would like for an axe head. So this Vaughn is actually a much harder steel, which is pretty cool. It has the hammer pull on the back, so you can actually use that to drive nails and all that. So you don't have to worry about it mushrooming if you are using it on metal, which is pretty cool. It, of course, comes from Walmart. Dull as dull can be, and you can see there's a nice polished edge on there now. I went after this thing because in my testing, it was just super, super dull, and I really couldn't get anywhere with it. So I took after it with a file, and then hit it up with some sharpening stones, and now we have a really nice polished edge on there that's really sharp. It'll actually cut paper. It's really good. It's hung very well. I went through the box of these at Walmart, and there's probably about 10 of them in the box, and about half of them had bad grain orientation. So you can see here, it's not horrible, not the best. You can see it's quite a bit of a curve to that. You can see there's a bit of a kind of a knot there as well. It looks like heartwood or something, but probably not a knot. But that could potentially be an issue. But you can see here, the grain kind of twists a little bit, so there is some runoff here, which you really don't want. You can see that runoff, how the grain starts up here, and if you follow it, it runs off there. If this were a full-size axe, I would definitely be worried but it's not a full-size axe. The odds of me breaking that are probably zero. Hung very well, both sides. Very nice tight fit on the head. Overall, this is a great little camp axe. These are tough as can be. It's good steel, good hammerhead. So if you are like pounding in tent stakes or setting up kind of a doing stuff where you might need that hammer, that's a really good option. Comes on that 14-inch handle, a little shorter than I'd like, but you know what? If this thing ever fails, if the handle does ever fail, I'll put this on like an 18-incher and upgrade it. Cause I think it could stand it. It could definitely handle an 18-inch handle on it. So overall, really like it. Really good. You know, and it didn't take me long. That 1090 steel takes a fantastic edge. I'm telling you, maybe 10 minutes of filing and maybe 10 minutes of polishing. I basically just, like I said, I hit it up with a metal file. Hit it up with I think maybe my 1000 grit stone, and then my 3000 grit stone, and then I took actually my Dremel with a buffing wheel and just kind of buffed along the edge a little bit just to give it a little bit of a shine. Fantastic little guy, and with a sharp edge on this thing, it splits kindling like you wouldn't believe. It takes limbs. Very, very good. Not something I would take a tree down with. This thing is a little short. You're not going to get much leverage to do any felling with it. But I mean, you can take down saplings, but that's about it. And once again, it's another one you can get really up close, tight, and personal. So if you want to do some carving work or close-up fine work with this, it will work as well. Plus, you do have that option, of course, is using it as a hammer. So cool for the money, 20 bucks. How can you go wrong? Last but certainly not least, the council tool, Hudson Bay. These things are kind of well sought after, and you can see this one does not have a lot of use on it at all yet. I've had it for about a month or so. I only kind of brought it out to do some light just taking down some branches and clearing some brush with it so far. Nothing major at all. Kind of disappointing they painted the top here so you really can't see the grain orientation, but on the bottom you can see it is dead wrong, completely opposite of the way it should be. But you know what, that is not a major issue, guys. I know everyone always like, oh my god, you need grain orientation, it says so in an axe to grind. But if you also look at the Forest Service regulations, the Forest Service would accept this. Grain orientation is not the most important thing to the strength of an axe. The most important thing is that there not be runoff, and that the individual grain lines are straight. And in this case, you can see you can follow these all the way from one end to the other. There is no runoff in this axe, so I'm not concerned at all about it breaking. Once again, it's a shorter handled axe, so quality control issues like that are not going to be a big deal. I know it's the huge, you know, like I know we've all watched an axe to grind and heard what he said, but you know, the Forest Service doesn't feel it's that big of a deal, and the Forest Service buys millions of axes. You know, they've been doing this a long time, and their requirements, I think, are good enough for me. It's got a little bit of a pull there, really heavy black paint on this sucker, and the edge is not the sharpest. It's okay. Council doesn't really sharpen their axes when they send them to you. They leave it to you. It's part of the way that they keep prices down. I think I paid $18.99 for this at Bailey's, and then it had like the $10 shipping, so I actually bought a couple of axes to them all at once. The Council tools, I think, are really good. The axe is hung very well. Hung very well. It's a really nice balance to it. It's really kind of forward heavy. So when you're holding it, it just really definitely seems to want to chop, and you can take some pretty decent sized trees with this, as well as kindling and limbing and all that. Once again, it's another, you know, this design, you can get up really close and personal for carving and close-up work. The profile, it's a very nice thin profile bit. So you can do, you see it's a very nice thin bit, so you can sharpen this thing up really, really nice and get a lot of work out of it. So there you go, guys. 3 very inexpensive, easy to find axes that won't break the bank and are also really good quality. And in fact, I don't think you're going to get any axes better than this in this price range. You got to go up to get better. So there you go. Hope you guys enjoyed. There it is.